Do you ever think that having more paint colors is better? Today, I walk you through the reasons why it's better to have fewer colors to choose from when you're painting. And one of those reasons might surprise you in that it will actually help you stand out as an artist. Hey everyone, I'm Blake. Let's just get started with my primary kit. And it's very small, it's only 6 colors. So the warm is the cadmium yellow medium hue, and you can use a lot of different kinds of yellows, but this is the kind that I like. And you'll see as I put it down, try not to use too much water. It's just a nice sort of sunshiny yellow. The cooler yellow is the Cadmium Free Yellow Light. Paint colors are very mysterious. Well, colors in themselves are very mysterious, but I do my best. This is the cooler yellow. And it's much more what I like to call citrusy. It's much more like lemon. It's closer to green in the spectrum. Moving on to blue, the 2 blues that I have are a warm blue, which is the cerulean blue, and the cool blue, which is the ultramarine blue. It says green shade there. Warm blue is the cerulean. It's more like a cobalt, a sky blue. And then the cool blue is the ultramarine, much more it's much closer to a purple or violet. Someone once suggested that I use primary cyan as my choice for blue, but cyan is so intense. It's such an intense blue that I was having a really hard time mixing it down to get it to the tone that I like. I found that cerulean and ultramarine are just perfect for what I need. Moving on to reds, the warm red I use is the Cadmium Free Red Light. This is the warm red. It's kind of like a carnelian, more of a coral. You can see it's closer to the yellow. The cooler one is the Pthalo crimson I'm using. And this one is obviously more in the violet zone, so it's much cooler, and it's kind of hard to see the difference between those yellows. When you start adding white, you'll see that this is much more citrusy, and this one can be manipulated to look more like a Naples yellow, and Naples yellow is a nice creamy banana yellow. So those are my primaries, and I also consider, it's not technically a primary, but white is one of my standard colors that I keep in my kit here with those 6, because if you want to lighten any of these colors, you just add titanium white. And I have a really big container because I use a lot of white. And in one of my episodes, I said that I have a cheap white because I use a lot of white, but don't do that. Don't get cheap white. Cheap white, no matter how thick it is, it's not going to have the same quality as this Liquitex or any better of the brands. It just won't lighten your paints as much. It doesn't have a strong pigment like this one does. Black is interesting, but you don't darken a color with black. I mean, you can, but you'll often get strange results. And I keep black because I use black on its own, and I do use it to make darker colors. But if you want a dark yellow, you won't use black because black will just suck the life out of your yellow, and it might make it a strange green color. Same with all the other ones. Black is just gonna take out all the zing from your color. It's gonna automatically deaden that color. Here's what they look like on the paint palette. You can get a lot from these. You can get pretty much any color you want from these. And it's just a lot more efficient. You don't have to store all of the different colors and you don't have to go looking for them, digging through your supplies and trying to find that, exact purple. You're buying less paint, so you can splurge a little bit on the higher quality paints. Let's talk secondary colors. Secondary colors are what you get when you mix primary colors. And that's purple, orange, and green. I never buy secondary colors anymore. I used to buy them, and as you can see, I have a bunch of greens. These greens are languishing away in here because I just don't use them. I will mix purple, orange, and green for you, warm and cool, using my primaries. Let's start with the purple. So let's start with the warm purple. Because color is really strange, I'm using a cool red and a warm blue to make my warm purple. So let's use that crimson and my cerulean. Pretty 50-50 here for my warm purple. And it's more of a plum color. Those are warm purple. And for the coolest of the purples, I'm going to mix the ultramarine blue and my nutfall crimson. It's about a 50-50 mix. And this is more like grape color. I'm gonna add a little more blue just to give you that sensation. And this is the cool. It's more like grape, as you would see grape. Now moving on to orange, red and yellow. Let's do a warm orange. And let's use our warm yellow, which is the cadmium medium. Let me add a little more yellow, warm orange. And for a cooler orange, I'm going to use I'm just going to take it from this little here and this here. So let me just add a little more yellow to it. What do you want to tell me? A little cooler. Green is a little strange because it uses yellow. Yellow is a very odd color. So for a warm yellow, I'm going to mix my cadmium medium hue with the warmer blue, which is cerulean. This is my cerulean and my blue, and I'm going to make this green. And for that colder green, let's use the ultramarine blue So I'm using my cool ultramarine and my cool yellow. And I'm getting a cooler green here. Now, one of the green colors I have in here that you can buy out of the tube if you use a lot of green and you don't want to mix it is this light green permanent color. And check this green out. It's very bright. I'm just going to do it right on the paper. And to get this really fresh green that I didn't get from my primaries, the primaries that I prefer, I have a way of doing that, and that leads me into my auxiliary color. So So let's go through this bin, and these are the colors I reach for a lot. These are colors you can make using the primaries, depending on which primaries you use. One that I find really great is the turquoise, and this turquoise is Pthalo turquoise. And it's just a beautiful color that's hard to get. I can simulate turquoise when I use my primaries, but this particular one has this transparency, and you can see these lines when you go by paint. When you can see the lines through there, it means it's transparent. It's got a really strong saturation, and it's just beautiful. Interesting thing about this turquoise, as soon as you add anything to it, like white, I'll give you an example. It's beautiful, but it really mutes it. Another color that you'll see me using a lot is raw umber, and I'm using the golden. Raw umber helps you dirty up colors without having to use the color opposite the color wheel. It's very utilitarian, and you can also get a lot of nice, really brown, earthy colors from that. Another color that I love and I reach for a lot, I like to use this Flash vinyl paint ochre. It's just a really pretty, it's just a very pure, earthy yellow. Titanium buff. I have a big jar of this because I use it all the time. Titanium buff, or what they're calling unbleached titanium here. You can make it from white and raw umber and a little bit of ochre. You can just sort of blend it yourself, but I use it so much that I just buy a big bottle of it. And the good thing about titanium buff is that if you want to lighten another color and you don't want it to be so cold with the titanium white, just use this. It's very creamy. It's kind of an ivory color. Another color I like to use is burnt sienna. You can make burnt sienna, I think, with red, ultramarine, and yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember right now, but burnt sienna is, it takes a little work to make this tone, but it's possible with your primaries. This is something I also really like to have on hand. Burnt sienna. I was trying to find out what are the minimum colors that I need to buy, and this one is really interesting because if you place it on the palette just like this, it looks really like an olive green. But watch when I spread it on the paper. It's really bright and it glows. It has a really lovely transparency. This palette already is looking really pretty together. And maybe that's why I like it. It's just my preference. I think I like those earthier colors, and it's really up to you which of these extra colors you buy and have on hand. And then I also have one more, this quinacridone magenta. I don't use this a lot, but if you like pinks, it can really help you get pink color, which is just beautiful. Now, fluorescents. Fluorescent colors, you just can't make them. Well, you can, but they're harder to make. Depending on relative to the other color you're using, you can approximate a bright fluorescent high chroma color. But I like these Crink pens because they have a fluorescent line, and sometimes I like to play. You just squeeze them down like that, and I just like to play with those bright fluorescent colors. Just fun to have. And I mix them with other colors to get what I want. So we have turquoise, raw umber, ochre, Titan buff or unbleached titanium, burnt sienna, green gold, I think it might also be called azo green, quinacridone magenta, and the Crink hot pink fluorescent and hot orange. I like to mix on the fly, but If you ever want to keep track of the colors that you really like, you can make these swatches or chips. And if you want to learn how to do this, Laura Horn, she has a class on how to do this. So now I know how to mix these colors if I ever want to recreate them. I bought this set of cheap paints. I guess I don't really want to give away the brand. But it was just for an example, and they can be actually fun. Some of these are nice, but, and what I wanted to show you was that I can match these with my primaries and also with the help of my friends here, my extra paint friends. I took a bunch of them and I swatched them out on this piece of paper. And I have two columns here. This is the fast track and this is just using old school primaries. And what I'm gonna do is mix this carmine first using my fast track. And my fast track, I mean, is my kind of cheaty color. So this is the non-primary bin, the kind of my, I guess we could call it my cheat bin, I don't know. These are the colors that I reach for a lot. So I'm thinking this is, it really looks like burnt sienna to me. So let me add some coolness by adding the cerulean blue. Just a little bit of that. I think that's really close, although actually it feels like it has a little red in it, this cool Pthalo crimson red. Too much water in there. I think that's it right there. There it is. So that was burnt sienna and a little red and blue in there. And the way that I would try to get this without the burnt sienna, without cheating, so to speak, is I'm going to try some ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue is actually how you, these are actually how you get burnt sienna, these colors right here. Ultramarine and some Pthalo crimson, just gonna make purple. Warm red, and I want the warm red with a tiny bit of ultramarine. And in fact, I think that looks a lot more like the carmine that we were trying to emulate with the inexpensive paint. I actually might add a little more blue to it because it almost has like a purple effect. Close. I think that's really close. So now let's do this red. I don't need to fast track that because I think that's close. So I used the warm red and the ultramarine blue for that. So this is just from, yeah, look at that. That's almost exact. Maybe even a little bit more blue because it has a kind of cool aspect to it, that red. Now there's lots of ways to get here. I could use this Pthalo crimson as well. Try to manipulate it. I think that's a little closer. It's a little cooler. It's funny because I went to go change my water and I was noticing that I think I could have made it a lot easier for myself and just gone with the two primaries, this the warm red and the cool red. Let's just see, right, yeah. Like that right there is way closer to what all the shenanigans that I was trying to achieve with, I don't know what I was doing, ultramarine. It's an adventure, right? It's a color mixing adventure. So on to peach. This peach does not look like peach to me. It looks more like a rose petal. That's what I would call it if I worked in that laboratory. But this quinacridone magenta is a fast track to pink. I'll show you why. Titanium white, of course. Whisper pink. But let's do just a tiny, tiny touch of the quinacridone magenta. That's pretty close. I think they're peach. I see why they call it peach now. Their peach is a little warmer. So, and if I add yellow, you can see it's a little warmer relatively. With my primary colors, just using my old school primary set, we're going for a pink, so we want a cool red. So that's the Pthalo Crimson. Let me lay down some white. And some of this Pthalo Crimson, just a little bitty. Now, see, now I'm too peachy. But we have like there's millions of colors, so I think it's kind of fun to go on the adventure of doing this exercise and maybe even try it yourself. All right, let's try this apple. Now, I know this apple is going to be hard for me. Those bright greens, I can fast track that, and guess what color I use? Phthalo turquoise. Turquoise, white. So I'm going to add some warm yellow to it. More yellow. And this apple green was turquoise, yellow, warm yellow, and white. And we can get it warmer and lighter if we want by just adding more yellow. I'm stubborn when it comes to buying green. But if you like green and you use it a lot and you do sort of landscapes and trees, and make green one of your colors in your collection. Okay, so the primary old school way of doing it without the turquoise, this is gonna be a little hard for me. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it, honestly, but I'll try. And it might be just because of the blues that I choose to use. Maybe that cyan blue that person was telling me about might be better, but let's see. Primaries only to get this apple. Let's try warm blue, cool yellow. It's more like a Granny Smith. Let me add some white to that, so you can see. See, it's still too warm. I'm afraid that if I add ultramarine blue, it's gonna dirty it too much, but I'm gonna try. See, it just went dirty. It didn't work. I mean, it's a beautiful color, but you know what I wanna try? Let's try the cerulean blue with the warm yellow instead of the cool yellow. It doesn't have that crisp apple punch that I want. So let me try some cool yellow in there and see. Oops, I can that. Oh, look at that. That's cool. That's a pretty color. I think if we had that cyan blue that person was telling me about it. Okay, here's the primary cyan. Okay, so this stuff is super concentrated color. It kind of scares me a little bit. See, look at that. This might get us where we're trying to go. Yeah, look at that. That's it right there. That's it. Okay. That's so interesting. I think I might actually keep this primary cyan in my primaries from now on because of this lesson. Moving on to the dark teal. So there's turquoise and a little white. Fast track, pretty close. We could add a little ultramarine blue in there maybe. Yeah, there it is. The cerulean blue, we're trying to get this dark teal with our primaries, and then I'm gonna use this cool yellow. Close. Yeah, I like that. I actually like my color better. I can just tell from looking at it that it's gonna be ultramarine blue and some white. To make that sort of cornflower blue. Purple is really easy to mix. Quinacridone and ultramarine. Let's try that, because that's pretty cool purple. There we go. pretty close. Let's go old school on that, and I would say the Pthalo, which is a very cool red, and the ultramarine. Let's try that. And the more you do this, the better your eye gets at adjusting those little fine tweaks. Mixing your own colors and playing around with your color voice is going to add a sophistication to your palette, and people will notice that. They will be able to tell, and it may be more of a subliminal thing, but people who have good taste and buy good art will notice that you have that depth and skill that sets you apart from other artists. If you are curious about color and you want to go a little deeper, check out Joseph Albers. I'm sure you probably have heard of him. I have a link to it in the description below. Here, the vibration appears as an illusion for which we have no explanation. I'm really fascinated by this vibration that happens when you place certain colors on top of others, and I'm always looking for that when I'm painting. Joseph Albers, Interaction of Color. Wow, that was a lot. And if you're the kind of person that enjoys watching paint dry, then that was for you. Next time, I'll be carrying this theme over and I'll have a painting session, and you'll be able to watch me mix color. More intuitive, less theory.